The pristine lawns of Oak Ridge Estate stretched out before me like an artificial paradise. Every hedge trimmed to mathematical perfection. Every home painted in the exact same 3 approved color schemes. I pulled our moving truck into the driveway of our new colonial-style home and watched my 8-year-old daughter Ellie press her face against the window, her eyes wide with tentative excitement. "Is this really our house now, Daddy?" she asked, her small voice still carrying the weight of all we had lost. "Yes, sweetheart, this is our fresh start," I replied, squeezing her hand gently. After losing my wife Marissa to cancer 14 months ago, I had requested a transfer from active field operations to the FBI training division. My years commanding the hostage rescue team had taken enough time away from my family. Now that it was just Ellie and me, I needed stability, predictability, safety, or so I thought. I had barely unloaded the first box when a sharp knock interrupted our progress. A woman stood at our doorstep with a clipboard pressed against her chest like armor. Her blonde hair was styled into a perfect bob, not a strand out of place despite the summer breeze. Her smile stretched her face but never quite reached her eyes. "Welcome to Oak Ridge Estates," she announced with practiced warmth. "I am Patricia Hensley, president of our Homeowners Association. We are so pleased to have a new family join our community." She emphasized the word family while her eyes darted behind me, clearly searching for a spouse that was not there. Her gaze settled on Ellie, who had partially hidden herself behind my leg. "And who is this little one?" Patricia asked, bending slightly at the waist. "This is my daughter, Ellie," I said, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "And I am James Mercer. It is just the 2 of us." Something flickered across Patricia's face. Curiosity, judgment, suspicion. Whatever it was, it vanished quickly beneath her professional veneer. "How lovely," she said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "Well, I brought you our community guidelines, all 57 pages. I recommend reading them thoroughly tonight. Violations can result in monetary penalties." I accepted the binder with a polite nod. "Thank you. We will comply with all regulations." Patricia's eyes narrowed slightly at my calm acceptance. People in positions of arbitrary power often expect resistance. It gives them purpose. My decades in law enforcement had taught me that the quickest way to disarm such people was to deny them the conflict they craved. "What brings you to Oak Ridge? What line of work are you in?" Patricia asked, taking a half-step forward as if entitled to enter our home. "Government work," I said simply. "Administrative, quite boring, actually." It was not entirely a lie. My current role at Quantico involved more paperwork than field operations, but I had learned long ago to keep my true occupation private. People behaved differently around federal agents, and right now, Ellie and I needed normal. Over the next few weeks, we settled into a routine. Ellie started at her new school and even made friends with a girl named Sophie who lived 3 houses down. I watched my daughter slowly emerge from her grief, drawing with chalk on our driveway and laughing again. For brief moments, I could almost believe we had found our sanctuary. Then the citations began. The first notice appeared on our door exactly 3 weeks after our arrival. Violation, improper trash bin placement. Fine, $50. The bins had been 6 inches too close to the curb. 3 days later, violation, unauthorized chalk drawings on community visible surfaces. Fine, $75. The following week, violation, excessive noise, child laughter during quiet hours. Fine, $100. Each time, Patricia delivered the notices personally, her smile growing colder with each interaction. "Mr. Mercer," she said after the 5th citation, Perhaps Oak Ridge is not the right fit for your situation. Single parenting is so challenging, and our community standards are quite rigorous. I wrote the checks without complaint, each one a small price to maintain our cover of normalcy. But I also began documenting every interaction, noting the time, date, and exact wording of Patricia's increasingly pointed comments. My FBI training had taught me that evidence was everything, and something about Patricia Hensley had activated the threat assessment portion of my brain that had kept me alive in hostile territories around the world. Just a precaution, I told myself as I installed a hidden camera in our porch light, but deep down I knew better. The perfect suburb was revealing its shadows, and they seemed to be gathering around my daughter. The October morning air carried a slight chill as Ellie waited for her school bus at the end of our driveway. From the kitchen window, I watched her kick at fallen leaves, her purple backpack bouncing with each movement. Then Patricia appeared, seemingly materializing from the morning mist. She stood uncomfortably close to my daughter, pointing toward the street while speaking intently. Even from a distance, I could see Ellie's shoulders tense. When Ellie returned that afternoon, her usual post-school animation was noticeably diminished. "What did Mrs. Hensley talk to you about this morning?" I asked casually while preparing her after-school snack. Ellie stared at her apple slices. She said I should not wait for the bus alone because bad people might take me. She said especially children without mothers need to be careful because no one is watching them properly. My hand froze midair. The calculated cruelty of using my daughter's greatest loss to frighten her turned something cold inside me, but I maintained my composure. "You know that is not true, right? I am always watching out for you," I said gently. "She said you are probably too busy with work," Ellie whispered, "like before." The reference to my frequent absences during my active field days landed like a physical blow. I pulled Ellie into a hug, feeling her small frame shake slightly against mine. "That was before, sweetheart. Things are different now, I promise." Later that evening, while Ellie worked on homework, a soft knock drew me to the front door. It was Marcus Dawson, our neighbor from across the street. His eyes darted nervously toward Patricia's house before he spoke. "Listen, I should not be doing this," he said in a hushed tone. "But you seem like a decent guy. You need to know what you are up against with Patricia." "Come in," I offered, but Marcus shook his head vigorously. "Cannot be seen talking to you. Just know this, 3 families have moved out of this neighborhood in the past year because of her. She fixates on people she sees as different, especially single parents. The Rodriguez family lasted 4 months. The Campbells made it 6. Both had children." My spine straightened. What exactly did she do? "Started with fines, then rumors, then strange accidents that were never quite traceable back to her. Just watch your daughter, man. Patricia has a way of making problems disappear." With that cryptic warning, Marcus retreated across the street, leaving me with a familiar feeling I had not experienced since my days tracking human traffickers in Eastern Europe. The next morning, a certified letter arrived from the HOA. The violation cited was unauthorized contact with resident pet, claiming Ellie had petted the Johnsons' Labrador without written permission, creating a liability concern. The fine was $250. The absurdity of the charge was overshadowed by its implications. Patricia was actively monitoring my child's every move. That afternoon, Ellie refused to play outside. "I do not want to go to the park anymore, Daddy," she said, her voice small. "Mrs. Hensley is always there taking notes. She told Sophie's mom that I am not a good influence." The next day, Sophie's mother pulled her daughter away when she saw Ellie approaching on the playground. The message was clear. Patricia was systematically isolating us. I decided it was time for a direct approach. I found Patricia in her front garden, methodically deadheading roses while wearing pristine white gloves that somehow remained spotless. "Mrs. Hensley," I said, maintaining a respectful distance, "I would appreciate if you would address any concerns about my daughter directly to me, not to her." Patricia stood slowly, her pruning shears glinting in the sunlight. "Mr. Mercer, as HOA president, the safety of all children in Oak Ridge is my responsibility, especially those who might be inadequately supervised." "My daughter is perfectly well supervised," I replied evenly. "Is she? You are often gone until evening. A child needs constant attention. Perhaps this arrangement is not working out for anyone." Her smile was glacial. "Compliance or departure, Mr. Mercer. Those are your options here." I nodded politely and walked away, but something fundamental had shifted. That evening, I installed additional cameras covering every angle of our property. I placed a small GPS tracker in Ellie's backpack and programmed it to alert me if she deviated from her normal routes. I also began wearing a body camera disguised as a pen during all HOA interactions. As I worked late into the night setting up our security systems, I made a call to Adrian Vasquez, my former second-in-command at the hostage rescue team. "James, everything okay?" he answered, immediately alert despite the late hour. "Just a precaution," I said, watching the security feeds flicker to life on my laptop. "But if anything happens, I need someone outside the situation who knows where to look." I gave him Patricia's name and details, the access codes to my cloud storage where all footage was being uploaded, and instructions on what to do if I missed our scheduled check-ins. "This sounds serious," Adrian noted. "Want me to run a background check?" "Not officially," I cautioned. "Just keep this between us for now." After hanging up, I checked on Ellie. She was sleeping fitfully, her favorite stuffed elephant clutched tightly against her chest. I gently brushed the hair from her forehead and whispered a promise that no one would hurt her, not while I was alive. The first real terror struck on a Wednesday afternoon. Ellie's school bus arrived at our stop, but she did not step off. My heart hammered against my ribcage as I questioned the driver, who seemed equally confused. "She got on at school, sir. I am certain of it." I sprinted down the street, calling her name, when a small voice emerged from behind the Wilsons' hedgerow. "Daddy," Ellie peeked out, her eyes wide with fear. I swept her into my arms, relief flooding through me. "What happened? Why did you not get off at our stop?" Ellie buried her face against my shoulder. "Mrs. Hensley was waiting at the bus stop. She told me yesterday that child services might come take me away if you keep breaking the rules. I got scared and snuck off the back of the bus when it slowed down." That night, after Ellie finally fell asleep, I reviewed our security footage. Sure enough, Patricia's black SUV had circled our block 3 times that afternoon. The pattern was undeniable. Over the past 2 weeks, her vehicle had appeared near our property at odd hours, sometimes slowing to a crawl as she passed our driveway. The following day, Sophie's mother Laura approached me at school pickup, keeping her voice low. "We cannot have playdates with Ellie anymore," she said, her eyes downcast. "Patricia threatened to expose John's past bankruptcy if we keep associating with you. I am sorry." I nodded understandingly. "Has she done this to others?" Laura glanced around nervously. "Patricia keeps files on everyone, knows things she should not know. Most families just try to stay off her radar." That evening, a new notice appeared on our door. Unlike the official HOA violations, this one was printed on plain paper without letterhead. Community safety alert. All children under 12 must remain indoors or under direct adult supervision at all times. Unaccompanied minors will be reported to authorities by order of the Safety Committee. No such committee existed according to the HOA bylaws I had studied carefully. This was Patricia's work alone, an attempt to legitimize her surveillance of my daughter. The next afternoon, I left work early and parked several blocks away, approaching our neighborhood on foot through a wooded path. What I witnessed froze my blood. Patricia stood partially concealed behind a large oak tree near Ellie's bus stop, a professional-grade camera with a telephoto lens trained on the children disembarking. When Ellie appeared, Patricia began rapidly taking photos, following her movements all the way to our driveway where our elderly neighbor Mrs. Chen was waiting with her until I got home. I circled back to my car and followed Patricia at a distance. She drove to a shopping center in the neighboring town, entered a copy shop, and emerged 30 minutes later with a large envelope. My instincts screamed warning signals. That night, I extracted the USB drive from our home security system and created multiple backups. The footage clearly showed Patricia's escalating behavior, photographing our home, following Ellie, and in one disturbing instance, testing our back door handle when she thought the house was empty. I placed one copy in my safe, sent another encrypted version to Adrian, and kept a third on my person at all times. Then I made a carefully worded call to Sheriff Michael Connors, an old academy friend now serving in our county. "Mike, I need to establish a record without filing formal charges yet," I explained, outlining Patricia's behavior in precise, factual terms. "Sounds like stalking to me, James," Mike responded. "Why not file now?" "She is building towards something. I need to understand what before we move, but I need this documented officially in case things escalate." Mike paused. "You are setting a trap." "I am preparing for all contingencies," I corrected, "and I need someone outside my chain of command who knows what is happening." After hanging up, I sat at my kitchen table, reviewing the timeline I had constructed of Patricia's escalations. Her behavior followed classic predator patterns: isolate, intimidate, create dependency, then exploit. But what was her endgame? What could she possibly want with my daughter? The question haunted me as I checked the locks twice that night, my service weapon now stored in a quick-access safe by my bedside rather than in the more distant gun cabinet. Patricia was making her moves. It was time for me to counter with my own. The unmarked county vehicle pulled into our driveway at 10:17 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. I watched through the home office window as two individuals approached our front door, a man in a button-down shirt and a woman in a conservative pantsuit. Their body language screamed government officials. I had been expecting this. "James Mercer," the woman asked when I opened the door. "I am Rebecca Torres from Child Protective Services. This is my colleague, Alan Wright. We need to speak with you regarding your daughter, Alina." I welcomed them inside with calm politeness. "May I ask what this is concerning?" Ms. Torres consulted her notepad. "We received a report of child abandonment and neglect. According to our complainant, you regularly leave your 8-year-old daughter home alone for extended periods, sometimes overnight." "That is categorically false," I stated. "Who filed this report?" "I am afraid that information is confidential," Mr. Wright interjected. "We will need to inspect the home and interview your daughter at her school." "Before we proceed," I said evenly, "I should inform you that I am a federal agent." I presented my FBI credentials. Any false report against a federal officer is a serious offense. Additionally, my home is under continuous security monitoring due to the nature of my work." Their expressions shifted subtly. Ms. Torres cleared her throat. "Even federal employees must comply with CPS investigations, Mr. Mercer." "I understand completely," I replied, "and I will cooperate fully, but first please review this." I handed them a folder containing time-stamped security footage showing Ellie and me entering and leaving the house over the past month, my work schedule certified by my supervisor, and affidavits from Ellie's teacher and our neighbor Mrs. Chen confirming my attentive parenting. "I never leave my daughter unattended," I continued. "Not since losing my wife. I suspect this report was filed maliciously by Patricia Hensley, our HOA president, who has engaged in increasingly concerning behavior toward my family." By the time they left an hour later, the CPS officials were apologizing for the disturbance. The investigation was closed immediately, but the damage had been done. Patricia had escalated to using government agencies against us. That evening, I received an anonymous text message. "Emergency HOA meeting tonight, 8 p.m., Clubhouse. Vote to evict problem residents." I arrived at exactly 8 p.m. to find the community room packed with neighbors. Patricia stood at the podium, mid-sentence. "Cannot have people in our community who bring unwanted attention and government intrusion. The Mercer situation has become—" She stopped abruptly as I closed the door behind me. The room fell silent as I walked calmly to an empty chair in the front row. Patricia recovered quickly, plastering on her professional smile. "Mr. Mercer, this is a closed board meeting, members only. According to Bylaw 16.4, all residents must be notified of eviction proceedings," I replied. "Please continue." Patricia's face flushed. We were discussing general community matters. "Were you?" I stood and addressed the room. "Did everyone here know that Mrs. Hensley filed a false report with Child Protective Services today? That she accused me of abandoning my child? That she has been photographing my 8-year-old daughter without consent? That she has systematically isolated us by threatening other families?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Patricia's knuckles whitened around the podium. "These are serious allegations," she spluttered. "I am simply looking out for the welfare of a child without maternal supervision." "My supervision is more than adequate," I replied evenly, "and documenting your harassment has become quite time-consuming." I turned to leave, pausing at the door. "Before voting on anything tonight, I suggest the board members consider their personal liability in endorsing harassment campaigns against federal officers. Good evening." The meeting dissolved into chaos behind me as I walked home, satisfied that Patricia's public support had been fractured. But I had underestimated her desperation. The next day, Ellie came running from the school entrance, tears streaming down her face. "Daddy," she sobbed, flinging herself into my arms. "Mrs. Hensley was at school. She told me you were hurt in an accident and she was supposed to take me to the hospital. She tried to make me go to her car." Ice filled my veins as Ellie described how Patricia had approached her outside the school office, claiming to have been sent by me. Thankfully, Ellie remembered our family safety rule: never go with anyone, no matter what they say, unless they know our secret password. "She got really angry when I asked for the password," Ellie hiccuped. "Then Mrs. Rodriguez from the office came out and Patricia said she was just offering me a ride home. She left really fast." That night, I sat Ellie down for the conversation I had hoped to avoid. "Remember how I told you I used to have a more dangerous job before?" I began gently. Ellie nodded. Mommy said you were like a superhero who rescued people." "That is right," I said, my throat tight with emotion. "I led a team called the Hostage Rescue Team. We saved people, especially children, from very bad people. And I think it is time to tell Sheriff Connors exactly who I am and what Patricia Hensley tried to do today." The secure conference room at the county sheriff's office hummed with focused energy as I concluded my briefing. Sheriff Connors leaned back in his chair, processing everything I had presented. "Let me get this straight," he said, rubbing his forehead. "The president of your HOA has progressed from harassment to attempted kidnapping of your daughter." "Correct," I replied, sliding across the table a thick folder containing printed surveillance images, time-stamped videos, and a meticulous log of every interaction. Patricia Hensley's behavior follows a clear escalation pattern, consistent with predatory stalking. Yesterday's attempt to remove my daughter from school under false pretenses crossed into criminal territory. Agent Diana Wells from the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit, whom I had called in as a favor, studied the timeline I had constructed. "This is not just about HOA power," she noted. "The fixation on your daughter specifically suggests something deeper. The photography, surveillance, isolation tactics, these are grooming behaviors." Sheriff Connors frowned. "You think she was planning this all along, to take your kid?" "I think Patricia selects vulnerable targets, single parents, immigrants, anyone she perceives as isolated or lacking community support," I explained. "We need to determine if there are other victims." Within 24 hours, our investigation uncovered disturbing patterns. Patricia had driven 3 other single-parent families from the neighborhood in the past 18 months. In each case, the parent reported escalating harassment focused particularly on their children. Most concerning was what we discovered when Agent Wells obtained a warrant for Patricia's financial records. Monthly payments to a storage facility in a neighboring county under the name Patricia Winters, her maiden name. The storage unit revealed the true extent of Patricia's obsession. Inside, meticulously organized files contained surveillance photos of at least 7 children from our neighborhood. Maps marked their daily routes. Notebooks detailed their schedules, habits, and vulnerabilities. An entire wall was dedicated to Ellie, photos of her playing, waiting for the bus, even sleeping through her bedroom window. "This goes far beyond HOA tyranny," Sheriff Connors muttered, surveying the disturbing shrine. "We have got a predator hiding behind community authority." I stared at a photo of my daughter that Patricia had taken through our kitchen window. "She has been watching us since day one." "The question is why," Agent Wells said. "What is her endgame with these children?" Further investigation into Patricia's background revealed a history we had all missed. 20 years earlier, she had lost custody of her own daughter following a bitter divorce. The child had later died in a car accident while in her father's care. Patricia had been investigated for multiple attempts to take the child from school, incidents disturbingly similar to what she had tried with Ellie. "She is recreating her loss," Agent Wells concluded, "targeting children who remind her of her daughter and parents she deems unworthy." With this understanding, we developed Operation Suburban Justice, a coordinated effort between local police and my FBI colleagues. We would maintain normal routines while establishing covert surveillance on Patricia. Agent Wells prepared a psychological profile to predict Patricia's next moves. Sheriff Connors stationed unmarked vehicles near potential abduction points. For Ellie's protection, a female deputy was placed undercover as a new teacher's aide at her school. I equipped my daughter with a panic button disguised as a friendship bracelet that would alert me instantly if activated. "What do we tell the neighborhood?" Sheriff Connors asked during our final briefing. "Nothing yet," I decided. "Patricia needs to believe she still has the upper hand. We continue as normal until she makes her move." Agent Wells nodded. "Based on the escalation pattern, she will act soon. The school attempt failed, but it will not deter her. If anything, it will make her more determined." I returned home that evening to find Ellie drawing peacefully at the kitchen table, the undercover deputy's car discreetly parked down the street. The trap was set. Now we waited for Patricia to spring it herself. The forecast called for afternoon thunderstorms, turning the sky an ominous gray as children gathered at the bus stop. I watched from my parked SUV 2 blocks away, maintaining visual contact through high-powered binoculars. Ellie stood beneath a large oak tree, her purple raincoat making her easy to identify among the cluster of children. The undercover deputy positioned herself nearby, pretending to wait for her fictional nephew. My earpiece crackled. "Hensley's vehicle just left her driveway," came Sheriff Connor's voice, "moving east on Maple." "Copy that," I responded, tension coiling in my chest. "All units maintain position." We had predicted this moment. With the failed school attempt 2 days prior, Patricia would be desperate. The thunderstorm provided perfect cover, reduced visibility, fewer witnesses, natural confusion. The psychological profile suggested she would target Ellie during a transition moment when routines were already disrupted. The school bus appeared at the far end of the street, yellow lights flashing through the increasing rain. Children began gathering their backpacks, preparing to board. "Subject vehicle turning onto Oak Street," came another update. "Approaching drop-off zone from the south." I adjusted my position slightly, ensuring I had a clear line of sight. "All units stand by. Remember, we need to catch her in the act." Patricia's black SUV slowed as it approached the bus stop, pulling to the curb approximately 30 feet away. Through my binoculars, I could see her scanning the group of children, her expression focused and determined. She made no move to exit her vehicle as the bus doors opened, and children began to board. Ellie was third in line when Patricia suddenly put her vehicle in drive and accelerated forward, stopping directly beside the bus. She leapt from the driver's seat and rushed toward the children. "Ellie," she called out with artificial warmth, "your father asked me to pick you up. The storm is getting worse." My daughter froze, recognition and fear crossing her face as Patricia approached. The undercover deputy began moving subtly closer. "I do not want to go with you," Ellie said clearly, backing away. Patricia's friendly facade cracked. She lunged forward, grabbing Ellie's arm. "Do not be difficult. Your father is waiting." "Execute now," I commanded into my radio, already sprinting toward them. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Sheriff Connor's cruiser blocked Patricia's SUV from behind. The undercover deputy identified herself and moved to separate Patricia from my daughter. 2 additional officers emerged from unmarked vehicles. Patricia's face contorted with rage as she realized what was happening. She tightened her grip on Ellie's arm, causing my daughter to cry out in pain. "Let her go, Patricia," I called out, closing the distance between us, my FBI badge clearly visible. "It is over." "You do not deserve her," Patricia screamed, rain plastering her perfectly styled hair against her face. "None of you deserve these children. I would protect them. I would never leave them." The undercover deputy seized Patricia's moment of distraction to break her grip on Ellie, who immediately ran toward me. I caught her in my arms, lifting her clear of the ground and carrying her to safety as officers subdued Patricia. "You are under arrest for attempted kidnapping, stalking, and child endangerment," Sheriff Connors announced, securing handcuffs around Patricia's wrists. "This is government conspiracy," Patricia shrieked, her composure completely shattered. "He is brainwashing that child. He works for them. They take children. They hide the truth." As she was led to the police cruiser, Patricia locked eyes with me one final time. "I know what you really are," she hissed. "You are not protecting her. You are controlling her." I turned away, focusing entirely on Ellie, who trembled in my arms despite the protective circle of my jacket around her. "You are safe now, sweetheart," I whispered, brushing wet hair from her forehead. "She cannot hurt you anymore." Around us, stunned parents and children watched as Patricia was driven away, her screams still audible even as the cruiser disappeared into the rain. Phone cameras had captured everything. By nightfall, the entire community would know the truth about their HOA president. Back at our home, after Ellie had been examined by paramedics and given hot chocolate by a victim services counselor, Sheriff Connors pulled me aside. "The storage unit yielded more evidence than we initially thought," he said quietly. "We found sedatives, restraints, and a fully prepared room in the back. She had plans for long-term captivity." I closed my eyes briefly, the professional mask slipping for just a moment as the full implications hit me. "And the HOA board?" "Already contacting their lawyers," Connors replied. "They are claiming they had no knowledge of her actions, but our investigation shows at least 2 board members helped her target families." Outside, the storm was beginning to clear, symbolic timing not lost on either of us. Patricia's reign of terror had ended, but the community's healing was just beginning. The community center buzzed with nervous energy as residents filled every available seat. 3 weeks had passed since Patricia's arrest, and this emergency meeting marked the first time the entire neighborhood had gathered to process what had happened among them. Sheriff Connors stood to one side, while county officials prepared to discuss the appointment of an interim HOA board. As I entered with Ellie beside me, conversations hushed momentarily before resuming with increased intensity. We found seats near the back, preferring to observe rather than be the center of attention. That option disappeared when Sheriff Connors approached the podium. "Before we begin official business," he announced, "I believe there are some things this community needs to understand about what transpired here. With his permission, I would like to introduce you properly to your neighbor, Special Agent James Mercer." All eyes turned toward us. I squeezed Ellie's hand reassuringly before walking to the front of the room. The weight of my service weapon against my hip felt familiar after weeks of wearing it openly again. "Most of you know me as the quiet widower who moved in last summer," I began. "What you do not know is that I have served with the Federal Bureau of Investigation for 17 years, most recently as commander of the hostage rescue team." Murmurs rippled across the audience. "I came to Oak Ridge Estates seeking peace for my daughter after losing her mother. Instead, we found ourselves targeted by someone who exploited community rules to isolate, harass, and ultimately attempt to abduct my child." I paused, surveying the faces before me, some guilty, many shocked, all attentive. Patricia Hensley did not operate in a vacuum. Her behavior was enabled by a culture of compliance and fear that permeated this neighborhood. When she targeted families, many of you looked away. When she spread rumors, many repeated them. When she demanded isolation of certain residents, many complied. Several people lowered their eyes. I am not here to assign blame, but as this community rebuilds, I ask you to consider what kind of neighborhood you truly want. One built on surveillance and conformity, or one built on protection and support of each other. After the meeting concluded, a line of parents approached me privately. "Laura," Sophie's mother, had tears streaming down her face. "We were so afraid," she whispered. "Patricia threatened to expose my husband's past financial problems if Sophie kept playing with Ellie. I am so ashamed we gave in to her." The Martinez family revealed Patricia had been photographing their children as well. The elderly Chens confessed she had threatened to report them for code violations if they continued helping watch Ellie after school. "Is she going to prison?" Mrs. Chen asked tremulously. "The evidence is overwhelming," I confirmed. "Patricia's psychiatric evaluation declared her competent to stand trial. She faces multiple felony charges." In the weeks that followed, our neighborhood began its slow transformation. The fortress of rules that had imprisoned residents gradually gave way to a community based on mutual support. Children played freely again. Lawn ornaments that did not conform to the previously rigid standards began appearing. One brave soul even painted their front door bright red. Most importantly, Ellie's smile returned. She and Sophie became inseparable once more, their chalk artwork now spreading across multiple driveways without fear of citation. One crisp autumn afternoon, I took Ellie to visit her mother's grave. We placed fresh sunflowers, Marissa's favorite, against the headstone. "Do you think Mom knows what happened?" Ellie asked, her small hand clutching mine. "I believe she does," I replied softly, "and I think she would be incredibly proud of how brave you were." Ellie traced her mother's name on the stone. "Is that why you taught me never to go with strangers? Because you knew bad people might try to take me?" "I taught you that because protecting you is the most important job I will ever have," I explained. "More important than any rescue mission or investigation." As we walked back to the car, Ellie skipping occasionally despite the solemnity of our visit, I reflected on the lessons of Oak Ridge Estates. The most dangerous predators are not always lurking in shadows. Sometimes they stand in broad daylight, clipboard in hand, hiding behind rules and respectability. And sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one most prepared to fight back. Our perfect suburb had revealed its darkness, but in doing so had found its way toward genuine community, one built on vigilance, compassion, and the understanding that true safety comes not from control, but from connection.